I'm Lieutenant Colonel Stephen McOwen. I'm the lead for commemorations in the Defence Forces, and I'm a member of the Expert Advisory Group on commemorations. The decade of centenaries is effectively at a close, and through that period the Defence Forces has been central, in fact, to the state's efforts to commemorate that very, very contentious and fraught and exciting revolutionary period. People will remember, for example, the 2016 Easter Parade, which was led by Óglaigh and hÉireann, the Defence Forces, the Flags for Schools programme, and even last year, the handovers of our military barracks, which were commemorated nationwide. We've also had to grapple with some of the more contested aspects of our history, and the Chief of Staff has been very vocal in pointing out, for example, that during the Civil War, the National Army were responsible for various atrocities, some of them unspeakable. And we've had to, I suppose, grapple with that aspect of our history too. Ironically, however, one of the areas that has not been included in what is supposed to be an inclusive programme of events is the memory of the 810 National Army soldiers who died during the Civil War.
I'm Ewan O'Halpin. I'm a retired Professor of History at Trinity College, Dublin. By chance, I'm also a relative of two senior officers on the anti-treaty side in the Civil War. That's to say, Jim Maloney and Con Maloney, who was Deputy Chief of Staff. So my family links are very much on the anti-treaty side. My grandmother, Cathy Barry, was also very much involved. Having said that, as an historian, I think it's well past time that the state formally acknowledged not simply the fact of a civil war, but the fact that the state was victorious, and that it was victorious because its armed forces, the National Army, secured a victory against the anti-treaty forces.
About 40,000 soldiers served in the National Army during that period, and to quote one famous historian, not all of them can be categorised as bloodthirsty perpetrators of atrocities. We had ordinary men, some had served in the British Army, some in the Irish Volunteers, some even were out in 1916. And a selection of mainly working class men who fought for their country during the Civil War and in actual fact protected the state and the democracy that we enjoy today.
And they did this not simply by weight of numbers, because in the early days of the Civil War, when the key battles were fought, the IRA, the anti-treaty IRA, was numerically stronger, but they did it because they were better organised and better led. And the men who died in the National Army deserve to be commemorated equally with those who died on the anti-treaty side. I think it's high time that we all realise that the Civil War, while it created the party system in Ireland through what became Fianna Fáil and what became Fine Gael, did also create a functioning democracy. It's very hard to look at to find any other example where power was transferred peacefully from the winners of a civil war to the losers within 9 years of the conflict ending.
So it's very important then that those men would be commemorated as we approach the end of the decade of centenaries. So for the memorial, we wanted to design something that was really special. Something that would both respect the integrity of the existing site, where General Michael Collins is buried, but also a memorial that would encapsulate the traditions and, I suppose, the essence of Óglaigh and hÉireann, the Defence Forces. There are two major elements to the memorial. The first is the proportions and the dimensions of our flag, the national flag, which is a tricolour, as we know, of green, white and orange, symbolising peace between the two dominant traditions on the island.
Started here in Stradbally in 1960 by Jimmy McKeown. Back then in 1960 he got his own quarry down in Kilkenny, and from that time stone has been quarried in our quarry in Three Castles, Kilkenny, and brought up here to Stradbally for further processing. We have a great tradition amongst the sculpture community in Ireland, and many sculptors would have worked here in the last 40-50 years. Usually there's one to two sculptors working here in the yard. They come, they work on their pieces and then bring them on.
I started my apprenticeship here in 1982 with McKeown Stone. I'm from Kilkenny, which is the heart of Irish limestone really, so I'm really passionate about working in this stone, and I've stuck with it for 41 years now. So I specialise in hand-carved lettering, so it's a huge aspect of my work, and that leads me to all sorts of jobs, and this one for the Defence Forces is the latest, and it's just lovely to be involved in it.
My name is Ciarán Byrne. I live in Greystones, County Wicklow, and I've been carving stone since about 1996. So that's heading on, coming towards 30 years now. Learned to carve stone mostly with a lady called Belinda Eade in London. Then from about 2001, I've been back in Ireland doing various jobs as well as the stone carving. Most of my time is taken up now as being a secondary school art teacher. But during the summers and summer holidays and weekends, I keep up the stone carving and sometimes get a chance to do great jobs like this one.
In choosing this stone, particularly for sculptures or significant monuments, as in this case, it needs to be a very high quality stone, and we have some beds in the quarry that are very suitable for this. It's a monumental quality stone. It's from our Q bed in the quarry, probably the best stone available, and had it delivered up here to Stradbally, where then we cut it and shape it, and then in this case the artists then will come in and they will add their finishing touches to the stone.
So this is a memorial to commemorate the soldiers who died during the Civil War, and it's going to be going in Glasnevin Cemetery, and it very much relates to the grave of Michael Collins. It's a very important piece. I'm really proud personally to be involved in it. Like a lot of families in Ireland, I've got a family history of involvement in the Civil War. My grandfather was involved, and so I've got quite a personal connection with it. Getting to work with another stone carver, hÉireann Brannigan, and Gary Blakely's been great. He's the designer on the job, and he's been very precise and very careful and very thoughtful in the way he's laid the stone out. So
it's a lovely piece of Irish limestone, and the shape of it is quite simple. The dimensions, even though much bigger, are of the Irish flag, and there's 2 lines of text at the top and 2 lines of text at the bottom. And the top 2 are Óglaigh and the bottom 2 are in English. So the part I'm doing is I'm carving the lettering that's in the Irish, curvy lettering. And I'm also going to carve the numbers 1922 and 1923.
Carving a quote from W.B. Yeats on the back of the stone, and I'm carving the section down the bottom that's written in English.
Yeah, we're very pleased and honoured to be associated with this particular monument for the Defence Forces in particular. We have done a lot of work in Glasnevin Cemetery, work on Michael Collins, Cross of Sacrifice, within that area, very close to where this monument will be erected. And so we're really, really pleased to be involved, and we think it's going to be a beautiful monument that will stand the test of time, and it'll be around in another 100 years, when it's probably commemorated again.
The crest of Óglaigh na hÉireann is central to the identity of the Defence Forces. It's common to all 3 services, the Army, the Navy and the Air Corps, and it was designed by Professor Owen MacNeill for the Irish Volunteers, our predecessors, in late 1913. So central to the monument is the emblem of Óglaigh na hÉireann, which represents the sunburst of the Fianna and has a warrior's belt with the words Óglaigh na hÉireann, and an Óglaigh is a volunteer soldier, literally a young warrior. The volunteer tradition is really important for us because we are, and we remain to this day, a volunteer army. The Óglaigh na hÉireann emblem is darkened on the monument, and that is in mourning, in keeping with the tradition that we had right back at the funeral of General Michael Collins, when the officers darkened their cap badges. And you can see my own cap badge is darkened, which a tradition we have kept going for the last 101 years at this stage.
Yeah, we're a Thai cooperative foundry. We started back 35 years ago this year. A crowd of people got together, 7 of us got together, and we all worked in foundries back through Thai. Thai's a big history of foundries, back to 1920, the old AVI. So there's a couple of foundries started up, and we were working here, and just let closed down, unfortunately, and we decided then that we'd try it ourselves. So 7 of us got together and we started a Thai Co-op foundry, and we're 35 years going this year.
Yeah, initially the drawing was sent to us, so the process then was making the pattern first and getting the approval then from the Defence Forces that it was what they were looking for as such. And then we go into the casting process then as such. We moulded it and then we cast it now today. So tomorrow we'll knock it out and hopefully then we'll get the approval then that the casting is okay.
My name is Gary Blakely. I've been a graphic designer for about 40 years. I've been working for the 3rd Infantry Battalion for some time. I helped to put together their Centenary exhibition, Bloods 100. And through that connection, I was asked to submit a design for the Civil War Memorial. Well, one of the priorities was to ensure that it did not look like a new addition to what is a very important site within Glasnevin. The stone is Kilkenny blue limestone, which is exactly the same as what's been used for all the other elements here. And the basic design is the Irish flag, so the aspect ratio is 2:1. In other words, the stone is twice as wide as it is deep. And then we divide it up into 3 to figure out where the type would go. Obviously, most people will not know that, but that's the basic underlying structure. Then the centerpiece is the cap badge, which is actually 10 times the size of an officer's cap badge today. The officer's cap badge is 47 millimeters. The one on the memorial is 47 centimeters. And it's blackened to reflect the fact that officers blackened their badges after the death of Michael Collins. So it reflects that. And on the back is a quote from William Butler Yeats that speaks of the camaraderie that people feel when they're serving.
So I think in the end we achieved a really significant, beautiful, enduring monument. We had a beautiful, poignant ceremony on the 30th of July, and crucially I think what we've done is we've rehabilitated the memory of these soldiers who died for their country. The monument will stand as a lasting piece of sculpture and a lasting symbol for future generations. But perhaps from my own point of view, the most important people here are the relatives of those soldiers who died. And I think the relatives were delighted that finally their ancestors have been given the recognition that they deserve for their service to the state. And this monument will serve to inspire people for many generations to come.